Hi everyone. Hi, so welcome to our live stream discussion today. My name is Rachel Meadows. I'm the Volunteer and Community Development Manager from UK Men's Sheds. And I'm joined today by an esteemed panel of guests. Some may be familiar to you, some may not. And our session today is all about talking how sheds have been coping over the last year, supporting their members, and how they will be supporting shedders going forwards who may be experiencing a little bit of anxiety or uncertainty about getting back into the shed, socialising in groups, and how to support each other basically. So I'll just do some introductions. So we've got Patrick Abrahams from Froome Shed in Somerset. He's going to be hosting our discussion today. And he's also one of our shed ambassadors. So he does a lot of support for UKMSA. You may have recognised him. We also have Tony Smith-Crallen, who is from Silver's Workshop in Reading. And along with being an ambassador as well, he's also a mental health first aider. Also joining us is Des Williams, and he is the shed leader from Collingham and District Shed in Nottinghamshire. So welcome to Des. We also have Pete Jones, who is a wellbeing advocate from Men's Sheds Cymru. So welcome, Pete. And we're also hoping for Simon Poole to be joining us. He's from Real Men's Shed, and he's also works for Men's Sheds Cymru. He's having some technical issues at the moment, so he may appear. So hopefully he will. And yeah, so I'm going to hand over to Patrick now. And let him kind of take away the discussion. I'll kind of dip into the background, but may appear throughout. So I guess take it away, and welcome and a big thank you to everybody, and thanks for joining us to watch as well. So over to you, Patrick.
Good. Well, thank you very much indeed, Rachel, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. Now, this session is about how sheds have coped with the COVID restrictions over the last 15 months or so, and more importantly, some tips and ideas on how we can relieve any anxiety shedders may have as we reopen the sheds. Now, you can submit questions during the live session, but you'll need to be logged into Facebook or YouTube to do this. And we'll try and answer the questions during the session. But, you know, government guidelines vary widely across the 4 countries in the UK, and possibly on a local basis as well shortly. I don't know what might happen in Bolton, but we shall see. And there's more than enough detail on the COVID guidelines and instructions available on the English, Welsh, Scottish and Northern Irish websites. And I'd like to remind you, sheds should make their own decisions based on the needs and requirements of their members and where interpretation of the guidelines are needed. And sheds are all different types. There are some with employees and some without, etc. So for these reasons, we're going to be concentrating in this session on tips to help shedders regain connections, regain some degree of certainty and control in interacting and getting back to having some fun in the shed. So if your question is about vaccines or testing or passports or other COVID protocols, I mean, you have to comply with the guidelines, and it's important that people feel safe when they come back to the shed. But if it's within government guidelines, don't try and ask us for opinions. We will have opinions, but check with your members. I mean, and here's an example. I mean, Leo, in the background there, can you load the masks cartoon for a second, please? Yeah, so this is the question. Do you think our shed should ban shedders who choose to wear a polka dot face mask with plaid shirts? I'll leave it up to you in your shed whether or not you do that. I'm wearing a plaid shirt. You know, they're fairly common in sheds. So, but this session is about how, you know, ideas and tips about what's affecting how our shedders are feeling and how we can help them reduce their possible anxiety. Some may not be anxious, but there you go. But this quote actually typifies how I feel. It's okay if you were hopeful last week and afraid this week. You know, neither emotion invalidates the other, and neither makes you weak or foolish. So it's okay to be not okay, and it's okay, even better, to be okay. Anyway, look, enough from me. I'm going to move to Tony now. Let's go to Tony. Now, Tony, you know we don't have a bleep button on this particular
I'll be
piece
good.
Well, I saw on the preamble that it says that we should be good at things and mastery of subjects. I'm not sure what that was about. Anyway, so but what I'd like to ask Tony is, I know you've been in Reading in the Silver's Workshop. You've been running a weekly Zoom call. Can you tell us, you know, how that kind of came about during the lockdown and the kind of things that happen and the kind of things that happen on those calls?
Okay, we started out actually having 2 Zoom calls a week, one on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock, and it turned out that one of our members couldn't make that or other days of the week, so we ended up having one at 10 o'clock on a Thursday because he had dialysis on the other days of the week. So we started with 2 formal meetings at 10 o'clock on each morning, which lasted about an hour. We got up to, I think the most we got was 18 members along out of 70. And then somebody piped up, well, why don't you have it open every day? So in fact, our shed meeting room is open every day at 10 o'clock. And I pop up and say hello if I'm around, but the members can pop in and have a chat. And there are some guys who do regularly. I've got at least 3 guys who are widowers, who are lonely and who just want somebody to talk to. And I was on this morning at 10 o'clock with 2 other guys who can't get out, can't interact with other people. And we just had a chat and put the world to rights, complained about Wokingham traffic and how it's screwing up the road system. That was about it. But it ranges from all sorts of different subjects. There's no agenda. We just get on with it and have a chat.
Do you find that there are some people who come on the Zoom call more regularly than actually used to come to the shed physically?
No, I don't think so. It tends to be probably one guy comes more often than he would do to the shed, but that maybe his life has got less busy since lots of other things have shut down.
Yeah.
Because I think most of us have reduced our going out dramatically. So there are lots of different things that you were doing, sort of courses or whatever of things, but that's now gone. So you've got to stay at home.
Yeah.
And Zoom's there.
Yeah.
We were very lucky.
Empty calendars, I think, is the thing, isn't it? You know.
I must have one of those.
Are you planning to continue Zoom calls when you reopen physically?
Well, we did it. We got a grant last year from a local community fund to pay for a year's subscription, and we've just continued that this year. And so we will continue it certainly for the next. Well, we've got a 12-month subscription, so yes, it will be available. So people who can't get into the shed, they will be there. And within the shed itself, there is a Zoom camera, microphone, and you can join us in the shed if you wish, so to speak.
Okay, so you're planning to do that, like Zoom into Silver's workshop?
Yeah,
brilliant.
Into the tea space, so they can join us for tea. They bring their own tea and biscuits.
I hear that some of the people were joining the call really early on the daily call.
Well, I've got one guy who pops up. His earliest for a 10 o'clock meeting was 9:10.
Is he's on his own for 45 minutes or not?
Yeah. And I did pop in one day, and he was snoring. He'd fallen asleep.
Well, look, thank you, Tony. Peter, from your North Wales, are you South Wales? I can't remember.
South Wales, Patrick.
South Wales. Did you Zoom for your work with the sheds in Wales?
We do. Yes, we do coffee and chat meetings, which are held by the development officers. So we were doing 3 of those a week, and it's. I think as Tony's described, some weeks better turnout than others, but it's been quite well received, and it's, as Tony's discussed, really, it's just been a catch up using Zoom as a type of technology to do it. But so we do 3 of those a week, and obviously we're looking at reviewing that now as we go forward, because we're fingers crossed we can actually see people face to face in the not too distant future. And also, one of our development officers, Chris Southern, arranges a Zoom room, which is a virtual shed, effectively, where he arranges presentations and such like. And we've had loads of interesting stuff over the months, which sheds can come and take part and learn something new, and then have a chat at the end. So yeah, we've used the Zoom stuff to great effect, I think.
Pete, what kind of subjects are the most interesting for your Zoom sessions? Because I know you've been running them consistently from about last April, weren't you?
Yeah, well, from my perspective, some of the stuff that Chris has put on, we had a really interesting one on the Newport Transporter Bridge, which went back to the history of that, and actually they from the archives, and they showed some original footage from the early 1900s. That was really informative. But Chris has arranged all sorts, some artists, work, leather workers. It really is a diverse sort of input that he's arranged, and then we're putting all that together, working with one of our the shedders who's volunteered to assist us with that, and a lot of that's going to be made available online to see. So that'll be available on YouTube, etc. So yeah, it's been really good, I have to say, really really fun and really interesting, because it is an opportunity to learn at the same time.
So you're going to put all your Zoom sessions, which have been like presentations, onto YouTube. It'd be interesting to see if there's other sheds that have got recordings. Sorry, say again, Peter.
Yeah, I think it's going on our YouTube channel, Patrick.
Yeah, it will be good to hear from other sheds who've maybe got similar kind of Zoom sessions, if they've recorded them, and we maybe get them located in one place.
Yeah, good idea.
Des, how about you? Anything in Collingham sheds in terms of Zoom calls that you've been running?
We're perhaps like everybody. We're slightly different because we're on a building site. We've taken over his workshops. Over the shutdown, technically, we've been working for him. But most of the members, we set up into bubbles so we could go in and carry on working. It's a huge housing estate there. We've been building things like all the porches for the front of the houses, sort of 2.5 meters by 2 meter porches. Of course, we couldn't delay the building. Very, very strict rules. People were delighted that they could actually come in. 1 or 2 members that couldn't be kept in touch with phone calls. And now we're getting near going back. Lots of phone calls to say, when can we come in? We're really starting back in earnest from whatever the first working day of June is. So we've had to do. It's been enjoyable to work. We're handsomely paid for it, and we've done quite a lot of jobs. Community, footpaths are being repaired, notices about generally working with the community as well. The lockdown has been a great benefit for us, really, because we could go out and do things that normally, I say, people.
Thank you, Des. Well done for Collingham Shed. Peter, maybe can you talk a little bit about your advocacy work that you undertake in Wales, and how you typically been managing it during the lockdown?
Yeah, certainly. But before I do that, Patrick, I've had some reminders sent to me by the wonders of WhatsApp that I missed some very important people on the presentations, and also Malcolm. I noticed Malcolm is on here, and he's just put a comment from North Wales. In terms of some of those presentations that people can catch up on, with a heart maker, wood turner, wallpaper maker, Axminster, power tools, and yeah, available on YouTube and website. So thank you for the reminders. So so if I can just explain to everybody what our role is around advocacy. The whistle stop tour of it is it's a Welsh Government grant, Section 64 grant, which goes out to people, organisations who apply. And our organisation, Half Company, were successful in submitting a bid for that in 2018. So it's a 3-year funding thing as a pilot. And effectively, amongst other things, it funds myself part-time and my colleague Tony up in North Wales, and we provide what is quite cutting edge service, we think, which is an advocacy service which is tailored for shedders, and it's actually delivered to them in the place where they feel the safest and most secure. So pre-COVID, myself and Tony would travel across Wales, going to sheds, making friends, building relationships and trust. And over that period of time, we provide a free, confidential service to shedders. And we deal with such things as it could be people with struggling with confidence on a housing issue, a medical issue, and we actually, on their behalf, we give them a voice. We provide a voice for them. We listen without judgment, and we telephone organisations and write to organisations on their behalf. And we've been pretty successful over that period of time. So obviously that changed somewhat for us with COVID, so we weren't able to go out and about. So we adapted the service, and with Welsh Government's support, we've extended our service to include telephone befriending. Now, a number of organisations actually provide this now. The Silver Line has one, AIDS UK. But what Tony and I offer, which is a little bit different, is that we've actually met a number of the people that we speak to from the sheds. We've met them face to face when we were able to go out. So we've already built that relationship. And Tony and I speak to some of the chaps a weekly, fortnightly basis. They've got our contact details if they want to chat outside of our sort of prearranged slots, which we think is a bit different and much the same as our Tony on our meeting today was talking about. It is very much sometimes just general conversation, and it's the power of conversation in terms of improving people's mental health is huge, especially when you're speaking to people who may not be as blessed as us with large networks, large families around them, and they do rely on that contact, that conversation. And it's something to put on the calendar, that something is going to be happening this week. I'm going to speak to Pete, I'm going to speak to Tony, and it's something to look forward to. And we've received some really positive feedback about it, that actually a conversation, a telephone call is a great uplifter. And we're continuing with it,
We, on our telephone ring-arounds, we find that people are really, really delighted to take those calls. Tony, do you do ring-arounds with your shedders?
We did at one point, but it didn't work as well as we'd like. It proved to be quite an expensive thing unless you've got 3 minutes from your telecoms company. So we've tended not to do it since. I've spoken to a few guys. If something's been, we haven't heard from them or seen them, then one of the management team will give them a call. But we haven't done it on a regular basis. We probably should have done, but we haven't.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I worry about is contacting those people who haven't been able to be contacted. Don't answer the phone, don't come to the Zoom meeting. I worry about those and how we get to those. Although I was in a meeting yesterday and someone said, have you tried writing a handwritten letter, Patrick? Old-fashioned handwritten letter. And I must admit, we didn't, but it's an interesting thought.
Have you seen the state of my handwriting?
Yeah, I find my handwriting is kind of atrophied over the years in terms of the ability to legibly write. But Des, I think communication in Collingham is an important thing from your viewpoint. Talk to us about that and how you communicate with your shedders.
Well, we, as you know, the menssheds put out their monthly newsletter. We add to that. We had our own news, what's going on in Collingham, and we do try and keep in contact. We also, believe it or not, have actually used that old-fashioned snail mail.
You do?
I find you write to them, but you actually don't get a reply. They may send you an email to say, I've sent an email. We really try and keep in contact. really, I have to say, on a weekly basis rather than a daily. Even coming home today, a couple of the guys were ringing to say, one guy's just come out of hospital, advised to stay at home, lives on his own. When can he come back to the shed? And I'm saying, well, as long as you feel fit enough, we'll look after you. We have several people that can actually do it.
Let me just go around and ask people how they feel about. Do you suffer from anxiety at all, Tony? In terms
Yes.
of what and how's that affected you in terms of?
It's all right because I don't need to leave my office. I can sit here with my map of the canals of England behind me and just chat to people on Zoom. But I have had problems I've been suffered from depression on and off for 25 years, and occasionally I get to the point where I really don't want to go out of the house, and my wife pushes me, and I do go, and I enjoy myself when I get out there. But it's getting over that hump is quite difficult.
I mean, I think it's quite important. People need to expect to be anxious, even if they're not normally anxious, because these are different. This is different, you know.
Yeah, and I think it will be a problem. I think we've got to make it inviting for them to come back and to feel safe. You were talking about writing to people, but we did a pamphlet about our action safety plan.
Yeah.
It runs to quite a few pages, but we decided that we could send them an email and most of them wouldn't open it. I send out MailChimp so that I can tell who's opened it.
Yeah.
And I usually get 60 or 70%, but that still leaves 30% of our members who don't ever open our emails I send. So we actually put this in an envelope and sent it to them.
Good idea.
And it worked. And it actually stirred a number of people we hadn't heard from to give us a phone call or an email to say that they were still with us and they were looking forward to coming back.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean, try different things. It's great, Tony. Great to hear. Sorry, Peter, you had a point.
Yeah, I just wanted, pick up on something that Des and Tony were talking about and yourself there about the form of communication. And there is, I think, the value in old-fashioned paper that a lot of the people that we're in contact with don't have a smartphone, don't have a tablet, don't have a laptop. So the form of communication isn't the same across the board. And we've done the same there as Tony was talking about with our newsletter. We've got the Shared Times newsletter, and that's monthly. And yes, it's available online. But for a number of our members, we have gone that route of sending either individually or a batch of them to sheds for those who want it in hard copy. And actually, it's quite nice to receive something like that in a hard copy. The one chap I've been speaking to from one of the sheds was over the moon, to see an article about him. And he shared that far and wide with his family and friends, and was joking with me he had to purchase a new autograph book because he'd used them all up. But yeah, so that's a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling to feel part of the shed network.
As far as the shed network is concerned, one of the things that I think is quite important during this next phase is people to be focusing outwards rather than inwards. And I think it would be good for sheds to talk to each other going forward about their plans if they've got worries. I don't know. Do you see that happening, Des? Do you end up communicating with other sheds?
Very little. In fact, I spend more time trying to get 2 more sheds going. We're looking at getting a shed going at the University. And then there's another one out at Bardley. That's slightly on hold. But I'm trying to work to get 2 more sheds up and running. Spend my time. But could I stop me if it's too personal? We're talking about anxiety. I mentioned I lost my wife in November, which was something of a shock.
Yeah, Des, I'm sorry to hear that.
Then, of course, I've now got to go back to the shed and I'm sort of worried to find out that I've lost 2 members of the shed, plus one of their members' wives. In fact, it was quite handy to get together and talk and listen. And that's one of the things that I found wanted to talk about. And the other guys wanted to talk and share. And I found the importance was listening to what they were saying. And it's a huge problem with all people from day one when you least need it. And we could share. So I think our shed has become a bit of an expert on what paperwork requires.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that about you and your shedders, and well done for talking about it. And well, listening is, as you say, is really most important.
Yeah.
Let me move to Simon. Simon's joined us. Welcome, Simon. How are you? We can't hear you, Simon. We still can't hear you. Okay. Tony, let me. You talked about the planning that you did and the information you sent out. Are you having to update that in the light of the changed, regulations?
I certainly think we're going to have to, because this was written in January, and it consists basically of a risk assessment based on what we knew at that point, and then what we thought we needed to do. And I think, as now, I did a quick survey, and I think something like 95% of our members have had both jabs. Okay. And those that have only had one will be saying, I've only had one guy who said he hasn't had the jabs, but I don't know this particular member very well, so I've got to give him a ring and see why. We will be revising it. Simply like any risk assessment has to be, you've got to work on it continuously. There's no point in writing a risk assessment, sticking it in a corner to gather dust if things change around you.
And do you find shedders are asking you for these plans and instructions?
I think I've sent out about 10 copies of this to various people around the UK.
Okay.
And as I've said, we, as my management team, are very conservative. And what this is worst case scenario.
Okay.
And we've got grants from various people for doing with cleaning materials. We've got some cleaning materials from the UKMSA. Thank you very much. And we've got other bits and pieces. Asda have given us some cleaning materials to clean around the space. And it's been. We've taken that into account, and I think one of the things I've got somebody doing at the moment is cost assessments on all the equipment that's been given. Because in theory, you've got to have a piece of paper somewhere which says what each of the products does.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that most sheds don't have that.
We have a ton of paperwork. I think we have, I would say, in the region of 200 risk assessments. But we've now moved away from what I call the B&Q type equipment. We're now heading for more expensive professional equipment. We've been very lucky doing these big jobs. We can now buy decent equipment, and it's easier for me to make it easier for the risk assessment.
Well, one of the risks I think that sheds are going to have when they go back in again is the equipment they've got has sat there for a year without moving. Things like belts and other things. We loosened everything off and turned everything off and whatever. But still, before we really start to use them and let the members loose on them, I've got a team of 2 or 3 people who are going to go in and look at every machine, check the belts, check for flat spots and all the rest of it, and make sure it all works safely before we proceed.
Yeah, Tony, I was talking to a shed just this week who had an aluminium rotor off a lathe that has just disintegrated over the last 12 months. And they're looking to replace that. But I think it's really important. In fact, in Frome, we're not running the bigger machines for a few weeks because we're going to get the shedders coming back to start to check them out. And so we're specifically not running the machines for a few weeks after our opening.
One of the other things that we've said is that we, I don't want to use the word certify because that would probably disbar most of my members, but we take them through a procedure to check that they know what they're doing with the machine and that they're using it correctly.
Yes.
Now, they haven't used these machines for 15 months. So we basically said at the start, the duty managers will all be trained again, retrained and authorized to use the machines. And then we will do the same and go through everybody in the shed to allow them to show that they haven't forgotten how to use the equipment safely. And that's one of the other things.
I've been reading some statistics about the degradation of people's memory during the lockdown, and people are desperately struggling, especially with things like dates and times, because the days are so similar in a lockdown. When people say, "Oh, when did that happen?" You go, "I have no idea. I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago." And the other thing is, because people are speaking to less people, then the ability to communicate is gone down in terms of trying to find words. It's not easy, really. Anyway, look, Simon, we see you back again. How's your sound levels?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Well, look,
I might. If there's any swearing, just forget it.
I've been told they don't have a bleeper, Simon.
We've already told Tony about this.
And Peter, stop laughing because it'll go back to my team. Yeah. Wow.
Anyway,
I'm
Simon,
here.
hang on a second. Let me just let me get Leo putting a picture up if we could. Leo, maybe can you put the visitor picture up on screen so people can see the picture? Now, I believe that's you. Is that you in the background there?
No, I have no idea who that is at all. I've never seen him before in my life. No, it's me. Yeah.
I mean, my understanding is, notwithstanding the announcement yesterday that he made from Kensington Palace, this is someone who's got, a lot of caring issues about mental health and well-being. But one of the things I thought, I read about the visit to the shed, which we'd like to hear from him about. But I think he makes a point of trying to embarrass people and use humour in his meetings. Did any of that happen when he came?
Yeah. It was quite a short notice meeting, and the Real Men's Shed has really developed over the last 2 years as a sort of coalition of other things. So there's a women's shed and there's another group, and they've taken over this derelict pub and they've completely renovated it. And especially over the last year, the outside sort of yard where the Men's Shed workshop is has had a lot of garden planters and stuff. And basically, when you're waiting for the royal visit, it's a bit like waiting for sheds to open, actually, because what happens is they say, "Oh, he's 12 minutes away, he's landed," and then you have to wait by your sort of station, and you're not allowed to have anything working, so you've got to pretend you're looking at the router really keenly, and then he turns up and works through his things, and basically the guy that had done all the outside planters wanted to be seen to be doing the watering. But the only watering can he had was a little kid's plastic one, a pink one. So the sort of photo opportunity was Brian, sort of, who's kind of head to toe in tattoos all the way down his legs and everything, standing there with a little pink kiddie's watering can, looking like he's really busy. And so, of course, William, had to make a comment saying, every men's shed is obviously got to have a pink watering can. And totally broke the ice. I mean, he was really, really good. Ril's a really poor area of deprivation. It's one of the worst wards in Wales. And this project is just fantastic. But of course, it was, not everybody was there, and you had to sort of not move and wear your mask. So he came into the workshop, and how to sort of, you're told that if he addresses you, you say, Your Royal Highness. But one of the guys there was really nervous. This lovely guy from Liverpool called Woody. So by the time he'd got around sort of me and a couple of others, and he was introduced to Woody, Woody just went, "You all right, mate?" And there was he just covered it brilliantly. I mean, I have to say, he was really warm. He was really reassuring. His personal team were fantastic, because actually he'd been to a shed in Wales about 5 years ago, and it was November and it was blowing a gale, and I actually was standing outside trying to hang on to a gazebo to stop it blowing away. So I was kind of, I had a even more muffled up than I was before. But obviously his research team are so good, because when he was introduced to me, he just said, "We've met before, haven't we?" And I thought, well, last time I was standing in a hole, this time I'm wearing a mask. There's no way you know that. But he was really, really great. And, the whole concept of men's sheds and the well-being aspect, it's just kind of his natural language, actually. So, talking to everybody about, aspirations and how they're going to tiptoe through. And then also for us in North Wales, because he used to live on Anglesey when he was with the helicopters, he was asking, is there anything there? And of course, we've got 4 sheds on Anglesey. So he was really pleased to sort of know that, and said, "Oh, I'd love to get back." But when he came the previous time, it was a kind of mind link. It was linked to a mind project as well. And a lot of people that they see him on the television. Everyone's wearing masks, but he gives you fantastic eye contact. He's really warm. He really breaks the ice. He had a bit of a kick around with some of the young people who were involved outside. And it was great. I mean, there's always this little thing that you will know when he's coming, because all the press will suddenly run towards you and stand there. And so everybody was really trying to sort of, make sure there wasn't a fat person standing in front of them. And there were there's a couple of pictures where, there's a fat person standing in front of me. I'm not mentioning any names, but they know who they are. And, I've got an elbow. But I just love the idea that either he's done his homework really well, or he's got some really good, advisors, and he knows about the project, the concept, the movement. And it's just, the next time he goes somewhere, he'll be just as au fait with everybody. It was brill.
I mean, I think use of humour, the warm welcome, knowledgeable, and the face-to-face communication is absolutely critical. I think, we need humour going forward. We need this stuff. Pink watering cans, etc. I've seen a picture of the guy with the pink watering can. We must get that posted somewhere.
It's the guy with the pink watering can. I mean, he's got eyes tattooed on his knees, says Brian. And you're thinking, if there's anything that doesn't look right, it's that. But and it was just the general rapport that he is able to do with people. He can really talk to anybody. And the guys, I mean, some of the guys aren't royalists, and we had them tied up and gagged in a back room. You could just hear the banging as they were trying to kick their way out. And they're not ever going to meet somebody like that again. And his whole team was reassuring. The security guys with the little earpieces and the suspicious bulge under the padded jackets, it's really good. And, it would be lovely to think it's something that he can do and visit other people as well, everywhere, But I think what Des was saying, because I caught that, was, we talk about talking shoulder to shoulder. It's also the ability to listen that's massively important. And to give, when I get round, and that's the part of my job I love, which is just listening to people, because I learn so much. And, the guys that will be able to sit with somebody and just let somebody tell their tale. That's the best part.
I find that they want your listening, or somebody, that person is telling their story, but you can tell there's somebody further hopping on one foot because they have a story. They want you to go to them and listen to them, share that amongst the other members. It's so very good. Something I enjoy. Rather than actually working, I can just talk to people.
Yeah.
One of the things that I come across just recently is the question, "Are you okay?" There's they says the suggestion was, don't ask if people are okay. Say, "Are you okay currently? Are you okay now? Are you okay today?" Because that gives people the chance to say, "Well, I used to be okay, but I'm not quite okay now," and gives them a chance to speak without too much anxiety. But as you say, listening is the key issue, I think.
Yeah.
Every day is a new day, isn't it? And I'm going to say this. It might not be very appropriate, but I'm going to say it. There's a chap in Llangefni at the shed there, and he's had, well, this was last year, he'd had a colostomy bag, and he's an ex-Navy guy. He's an ex-sea captain. He's been around the world. You know, the stories are fantastic. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you okay?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "It's just the knowledge that I'll never be able to have a really good again." And, you know, everybody just laughed. The relaxation was, we can talk about this now. We don't have to, you know, dance around the subject. We can talk about Keith's colostomy bag because he can.
Yes.
And, you know, but that kind of warmth and that sort of there's a gentleness to being able to talk like that.
Yes.
Can I make perhaps a comment on a similar vein? People have come to us and they have prostate cancer, and you know they're really worried about talking to us. And we're sitting around the table having a coffee, and I sort of approach the subject casually and say, "Well, you know, it's got this problem." Out of, let's say, 9 or 10, so we say half stood up and said, "What do you want to know about it?"
Yeah.
Then he would ask questions. At the end, he said, "Do you know, I want to know so much more about it now," because he was, I guess, thinking he was now at death's door. Oh, hang on, half of us has got it. We're planning to go off, you know, another few years anyway, you know. So it really put his mind at rest, and I think that's the sort of thing. By listening, picking up on that, we can take that forward.
It's one of the things I think that a group of men together do actually talk about their problems. And I went through a prostate scare last year and had a biopsy, and I was quite open about it and talking to various people, and I got lots of advice and reassurance from other members there. It turns out I don't have prostate cancer. I've still got a problem, but I don't have prostate cancer, which was brilliant news. But I'd had discussions with at least 4 people in the shed who explained what was going to go on and what to expect, and that's been very useful.
Peter.
Yeah, we've got a guy in Prestatyn who has gone through prostate cancer, and every time I see him, Dave says, "Have you had your check?" You know, it's more or less he doesn't say hello. You know, it's like, "Have you had your check? Have you been?" And I mean, he's done that from sitting on a bit of scaffolding doing grouting. You know, outside, his legs are dangling, and he leans down and goes, "Have you had your check?"
but not that bad yet.
Peter, you wanted to raise a question. Hang on a second. Hang on, Simon. Peter.
It was just to, I mean, picking up on Tony's point again, really, that my colleague Tony up in North Wales started this thing with Public Health Wales 18 months ago, I think, which he worked together with them in delivering the male screening presentations. And so I continued it then down in the south, and it was really successful. And actually picking up on Si's point about, you know, the humour around it. One of the funniest kind of meetings or conversations I've been to was at one of our sheds where Public Health Wales had come and there was a conversation around the table, and they were handing round, you know, the poo tester or whatever for the the bowel cancer. Yeah. And it was kind of, but it turned into this really kind of humorous. It was all like we were back in school. It was very kind of, it was kind of very kind of schoolboy, a laugh and a joke. But actually, the serious bit that came out of it was two of the chaps said, "I've actually got that test kit back in the house, and it's in the second drawer down, and I haven't done it because I was frightened about the consequences of doing it." Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to have the answer, which wasn't a good answer, sort of thing. And by the end of the meeting, they both said, "I'm going to go back and do that now. I'm going to go and do that and it was because of the humour, and it's okay, and it's conversation and stuff. And that's going to be a great thing, when everybody can get back there and have those funny conversations to resolve some serious things through a laugh and a joke."
I think that's the important part. You're the only one. And when you start talking about it, as I said, the guy beside you says, "Well, I've got that. Oh, I've done that." Is that easy? How do you manage it? And you can just all have a good laugh, really take it to a good joke about it, and then they carry on. And they also bring on somebody else's worry. They just will say, "Oh, it's so easy. This is."
Yeah.
It's important that we communicate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a bit distracted there, Des. My dog came in, and my wife came in for some printing. Anyway, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I know Malcolm from Colwyn Bay is watching this, and they call it health by stealth, and that's a really good description. That when you've spent the day doing and talking stuff through, whatever it can be, and I've been, party to some fairly serious discussions, and yet at the end of them, people have gone, "Do you know what? That was a great day." And that is the sort of in the kernel what it's really about. And I mean, there was one chap in Rill who had lost his son in a car crash. He was 21. And it was, something that you never really get over it. But he did say to me once, after a day sort of messing around and pulling pallets apart, "I'm walking on air now." And, you think, if I could have put it in a bottle, I would. But, that's just brilliant. And that's how we address a lot of issues, because it's not always just, your prostate or your bowel or your AAA. It's kind of how you're dealing with stuff.
Yeah, Peter, can I ask Peter, how are you dealing with those kind of things one-to-one over the phone? Do you find people who are suffering from anxiety, and how do you deal with that?
Yes, yeah, and I think it's a collective kind of thing from all the things that we've picked up on today, and it's about listening. It's about listening, without judgment, and just talking through these things. I mean, in the first place, I'm in a good position in as much as majority of the people I've spoken to, I've met at the shed. So, they've kind of seen me there. We've had a cuppa and a biscuit months and months ago. So there's that trust there already, which is great. But yeah, I mean, the main anxiety that I'm picking up on at the moment is, yes, it's about returning to sheds, and am I brave enough? Am I confident enough? But it's beyond that. And the one chap I'm speaking to at the moment, it's, am I brave enough to get on the bus to go to town, or to, it's not just the sheds. It's much wider than that, and it's this re-entry anxiety that we talk about. But and I guess my main kind of thoughts on that are, in the first instance, like, anxiety is normal. Going back to, and everybody shared the story. If you're kind of, you're in the zoo and the lions escaped, it's quite, being anxious and running away is not a bad. It's not a bad emotion to have at that point, to be honest. So there's a rationality about being anxious. It's when it takes over and becomes problematic to you, it becomes more of a problem. But I think in terms of where we are at the moment, being anxious about going back to a shed or going back on public transport or even hugging someone when we weren't hugging for a long time, and now apparently it's okay to hug in some parts of the country and it's not in others. It's more common than you think to be anxious about that. And, you know, the most important thing is to talk about it, either with, you know, people within your friendship group, within your shed group, and it's to take small steps towards whatever that goal is, and whether it's jumping on the bus or going to the shed to see your fellow shed with their small steps. So it might be going to the shed and not going in. It might just be a chat outside and intentionally not going in on day one, but maybe day two, maybe week two, but, you know, being kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself, exactly. And,
yeah.
and ease back gradually, I think is the...
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of, we can all remember, I think, you know, in days gone by when we, you know, we all had a push bike and we were fab, weren't we? We were absolutely brilliant. And we could pull a wheelie, or we could go off a curb and go up the next curb, and we were all confident. But then if you don't go on a bike for 10 years, your first time on a bike, you're a little bit wobbly, to say the least. But by the end of the day, you're back doing it, aren't you? So you've got to, it's quite normal for us to experience this bit of a wobbly feeling, but we'll get there.
Good, Peter. Let me go around. Tony, have you got a kind of a tip or an idea or an important piece of suggestions to shedders going forward when we reopen?
No, but one of the things that's occurred to me while we've been having this chat is that probably what I will do is I will try and ring all our members that I haven't seen and ask them whether they're going to come back, and to try and get over this hump.
Great idea. Good idea.
But we can just live in hope, because I think there's a lot of goodwill and friendship out there which we can only build on.
Des, what about you? Tip going forward?
Really, I think that is trying to meet them in the car park as they arrive. We're pushed for car park space, so I sometimes act as the car park attendant. But when they arrive, then I can have a chat straight away. Come in, have a coffee. Let's go and talk. You know, get them going, and then I'll be in 10 minutes because so and so are coming back. Really, I've only had one guy that's technically stuck in the car park, and I actually got in the car with him a little while ago and persuaded him to come in and carried on after then as was going on. So not really a great problem for us.
Well, thank you, Des. I mean, one of the things that we've had suggested to us is that people who want to become a new member of the shed is to invite them on a one-to-one basis when the shed is empty, so that they get a chance to have a look around and maybe see some photographs. And that tends to reduce people's anxiety about joining the shed for the first time.
I try and get new members with somebody occasionally.
Yeah.
But again, it's either being there to welcome them, being outside, not waiting for them to arrive and knock on the door.
Yeah, warm and welcoming, I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Simon, what about your good self?
Yeah, I think it's been said before, but being not afraid to talk, not bottling it up, which is something we all have to condition ourselves to, you know, because it's a learning thing to be able to sort of not think that you've got to hide your feelings, and it can be just an anxiety. And the other thing is, I think positivity is contagious. So I think listening to everybody saying, you know, we're going to actually engage with people, you know, maybe just phone them up that we might not have done. I think that's the key thing. If when you're actually talking to the people, there is positivity, there is, you know, yeah, we're going to get through this, things will resume. Some people, when they're anxious, you know, nothing's positive. But if you can give that positivity, if you can sort of phone somebody up, or, you know, send them an email, or roll up and give them a chat, and just be positive about the whole aspect of what we're talking about, that actually spreads.
Yes. Good. Well, thank you very much. I think Tony's had to step out for a moment, but I guess is Rachel there?
I am. I'm here. I'm back.
Hi, Rachel. I don't know whether there's any questions that you want to put to the panel that we've received, or
there was not really many questions, but we did have some comments just about, I suppose, other sheds that have been doing stuff. Someone's posted a comment to say, it should be on your screens now, talking about buddying up to travel together. So I suppose it's anything that's alleviating that anxiety, making people feel more comfortable. But yeah, I thought it was just really useful, some of the things that you've been talking about. Obviously Des talking about the communication and the listening to members, and Simon talking about that kind of humour aspect. I think just encapsulates sheds totally, doesn't it? Kind of making people feel comfortable is the main thing, and just respecting that everybody might have had a difficult year for many reasons, as Des has highlighted, and just kind of thinking that other people might be in a different place than yourself, I guess, could be useful. But I think a great chat.
Good. Sorry, thank you, Rachel. Just stay on screen. And Simon, yes.
Yeah, I just like to say I like to recognise the amount of skills that everybody in the sheds have. When somebody turns up and you're chatting to them in the car park, or meeting them in the car, I don't think we realise that in the world of sort of communicating and people working, all the guys that we have in our sheds are actually, if they're not developing them, they're really skillful at making people feel at ease. And that's something that we don't always acknowledge. We kind of take it for granted, but that there are some people who've just got that sort of natural rapport and skill, and because it's a well-being thing, and because it's motivated from a good place, that also kind of spreads, and it also sets an example for other guys in the sheds who might not be so chatty, to go, well, I can follow so-and-so's example. And that's what we're really good at, isn't it?
I think so. Okay, can I suggest maybe, Leo, we put up the Nuffield infographic and just, oh no, okay, I'll do that one. Yeah, no. This one here, I was going to read this out. It says, here's a news article I read just recently. While schools of passers-by scurried for cover, H.D. Miller, a deputy health officer, shot and severely wounded James Wisser, a blacksmith, in front of a downtown drugstore early today, following Wisser's refusal to don an influenza mask. And this was the 29th of October, 1918. I guess we got over that one, okay? We just need to get over this one. At least we're not shooting people for not wearing masks.
The Americans are.
Anyway, yeah. So could we put up the this one? This is the Nuffield Health report on socialisation, making some suggestions. So expect some social anxiety. Don't avoid the social situations, but do go back gradually. Planning's helpful. Set clear boundaries. Don't put pressure on yourself, and be yourself. Don't worry about everyone else. Focus outwards rather than inwards, and be kind to yourself. It's worthwhile. There's a link to a detailed background to all of those items, which is worthwhile looking at on the UK Men's Shed Association webpage, www.menssheds.org.uk. Click at the top on Getting Sheds Back to Business. And there's also some other articles around in terms of dealing with anxiety. So can we just go around the panel, including Rachel, on any closing items? Rachel.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking part. I know that there'll be people out there who've been experiencing a lot of things that you've all experienced. So I think it's just really helpful that you've been able to give your kind of opinions and expertise today. So just thank you for that.
Thank you, Rachel, too. Tony.
I've got nothing to say.
Okay.
Some people would say that's an all-time first, but no, I'm looking forward to going back into my shed, and I hope everybody else is as well. I've missed it.
Yes. Good. Thank you, Simon.
I'm just worried I won't be able to leave this thing now. Now, having spent half an hour trying to get in, I think I'm going to be, me and the cat are going to be stuck here for the next half hour trying to unlog. No, seriously, I think that we're all in this, and everybody's got anxiety. Some people will perhaps mask it better than anything else, but we're all affected by it. Don't think we're not.
Yes. Thank you. Des?
I really not a lot more to say. I have been to the shed every day. We do 10 till 1 or 2, so we can get rid of them. But I find it's a great release for the pressures that I'm currently under. And I try and make the members feel very welcome, that they can now come back and do the projects that they want to do. Maybe what I want them to do. It does earn money.
You have an interesting management style, I think, Des.
I think I'm called a dictator, but we won't mention that on air.
Peter?
Yeah, just a repeated point about, it's normal to be anxious and worried about these things. Don't keep it yourself. Have a conversation. And there's plenty of websites and information out there with some helpful information. Have a look at Menssheds Cymru's website. We've got a wellbeing section with some signposting information there if anybody has a spare few minutes.
Good. Well, thank you very much. And for me, thanks very much to our panel from Des, the shed leader, dictator from Collingham. Simon Paul, pleased that you could join us. Simon, thank you very much from Mensshed Cymru. And Peter Jones from the mental health and wellbeing advocate for Mensshed Cymru too. Tony Smith-Crallan behaved without a bleep button being required. Thank you. Shed leader for the Silvers Workshop and UK ambassador. And thanks again to Leo and Rachel for their support. But thanks to you for tuning in or listening to this on demand. And don't forget, it's okay if you were hopeful last week and afraid this week. It doesn't make you weak or foolish. And it's never too weak to speak. So do talk about it. So our best wishes go to all sheds and shedders, and to everyone watching. Be active, stay healthy, and have fun. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Patrick.
Okay. I'll say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'll try.
I know.